My name is Mallen Baker. I'm the founding director of Daisywheel Interactive, and some of you will know that I've been writing about corporate responsibility and sustainability for the last 15 years. If your company already produces a corporate responsibility or sustainability report, then you're doing a lot of the hard work already. But these free videos are going to talk about one additional element that, if you brought it into how you report online, could transform the sort of returns you're getting with some of your most important audiences. So this series of free videos is going to be about immersive reporting. The first video, we're going to talk about the what and the how of immersive reporting, and the second two, we're going to look at examples of some of the pioneering companies that are already trying this approach. So let's get started. If we look at the mechanics of accountability, what you're actually trying to do, there's a number of things that you might be trying to achieve. So the first of them is explain when something's gone wrong. Pretty straightforward and hopefully not something you actually have to face. Another thing is going to be showing how you're responding to areas of concern, and in that sort of area you're talking about what targets you're setting, what your performance has been to date and so on. And a lot of that's the meat and drink of corporate responsibility reports. Third area is showing specifically how you manage non-financial risks. But you're not doing that solely from one perspective. So from one perspective, you've got an audience that's interested in how you're doing that in order to protect long-term value creation. And another audience is interested in how you achieve that simply because they want to know that you're minimizing the chance that you're going to hurt people or damage the environment and so on. And it comes down to start off with your stakeholders and who they are. And any company that's done the exercise of identifying their stakeholders may have some very specific groups depending on the nature of their company, but they're going to end up with a list that includes these people as their most important stakeholders. And in addition to this group of 7, if you ask many companies who are their most important stakeholders in terms of their day-to-day operations, it will tend to be these 3: employees, customers, suppliers, because those are the ones who have a real stake in the success of their business, who they deal with on a day-to-day basis. Okay, what do these different stakeholders care about from that list that we just looked at in terms of your accountability? Well, your shareholders are interested in how you manage risks for long-term value creation, or at least medium-term value creation, because that's the stake that they hold. Legislators are interested in how you respond to areas of concern, how you respond to issues. And they may look to you to manage issues with the threat that if you don't do it effectively, they will legislate. In any case, what they're interested in is where the system is failing, because new legislation is what they understand is the way that you deal with system failures. The regulators are interested to know whether you have systems to minimize the chances of things going wrong. Now, I put a question mark next to that because, to be honest, your annual corporate responsibility report is not the main way that regulators are going to depend on getting this information. They have all sorts of mechanisms for detecting when something has gone wrong and for ensuring that you've got systems to minimize those chances recurring. Nevertheless, in as much as they're interested in your corporate responsibility report, it's going to be with that mindset. Issue groups are then focused on the issues of concern that they are particularly focused on, and they want you to explain when something went wrong. If we look at those other 3 groups, who, as we identified before, are amongst your most important groups, employees, they want you to show how you're looking after your people, and that can be defined in all sorts of different ways depending on the type of company you are. And you have to make them feel engaged enough on the issues to care about your progress and input. They're not necessarily going to fight their way to the door to find out how you're doing on climate change unless you've taken some effort to engage them in caring about what you're doing in that area. Customers, it's almost a mirror image. They want you to show how you're looking after your customers, and you need to make them feel engaged enough on the issues to care about your progress and input there. And suppliers, you need to show them which of the issues that you're concerned about that are going to affect them. They're already in a day-to-day relationship. If you're a significant part of their business, then they have a stake in knowing what you care about and what might affect them down the line. So those are the things that they most want to know about. Now, the interesting thing here is out of the 7 that we've looked at, these are the ones who need to be engaged to take interest. They don't necessarily come to you just because there's an issue that they might care about to find out what you're doing about it. So how do you engage people? Well, there's a variety of mechanisms. You can use open loops, you can educate them about your business, human level stories, recruit them to take action. Let's talk about some of those. Open loops. If I say to you at the start of a conversation, there's a fascinating thing that I've noticed about you, remind me to tell you about it in a moment, and I tell you something else, you're going to be wondering all the time I'm talking about this other thing, what was the fascinating thing I'd noticed about you? That's kind of human nature. And that's an example of an open loop. And it's the difference between saying, here's a case study, we did this amazing thing, and we did X and it was brilliant, which is not a very interesting story, as you can imagine, as opposed to saying there's this big challenge that we're facing, we don't quite know how we're going to get through it. We've tried this, it didn't work, we're about to try this. And effectively I would typify that as watch me while I do this really difficult thing. It's more engaging and it's more interesting than a closed loop because it's something that's unfolding before your eyes. And if you've taken the time and you've done it right, you've made people care about whether you succeed or you fail. The standard case studies, you don't really care about them at all because they're only there because you've got something to boast about. Secondly, educate them about your business, because people underestimate how little people actually know about what your business involves. The challenge is, of course, that before we unload a host of the most boring material and videos the corporate world has ever seen, that you have to make it fascinating. And how do you educate people about your business in a way that's fascinating? Well, the challenge is that the people who are experts in their business, generally the things that fascinate them about the business are not the things that would fascinate external people. And that's why you need some outside help to do this. You need somebody who is going to latch onto the things that turn your business into a story. Take the series of food programs we've seen recently, like MasterChef. They have managed to make the restaurant business, and particularly the cooking end of the restaurant business, absolutely gripping and compelling viewing. How have they done that? Well, they didn't focus in on the technicalities of the most difficult chefing techniques. They didn't focus in on the chemical compositions of food and how it changes during cooking. What they focused in on was the challenge, the time pressure, the drama, the consequences of getting it wrong, and the absolute commitment to excellence when it works and when it gets right. And it's always done with human people, with a name, with a challenge. Will they succeed or will they fail? And it makes compelling viewing. That is one example of how you make your business interesting. Not that you have to turn it into a TV quiz show, but you have to look at those elements of drama or those elements of fascinating facts that will generally be entrancing to an external audience. Human level stories. Now, stories, as I said with the case studies, don't begin with boring, we did this and it worked. They start at every story you've listened to and enjoyed, every film you've ever seen in Hollywood that gripped you, started off with conflict. And conflict is about not knowing whether or not success is going to be achieved. And of course the story is finished with resolution, and that's how you know that you've achieved the outcome. But so many corporate stories miss out the conflict. They go straight from we think this is important and we did X, straight to resolution. And they always talk in a very corporate mindset. You know, Corporation X thinks that climate change is important. Well, nobody cares about what Corporation X thinks about. What about Dave, the assembly worker, who cared about it for a particular reason and spotted an opportunity and tried 10 different ways and failed, but finally made it? There are so many ways to make case studies more interesting than we do. Human level, but real stories, conflict and resolution. And then finally, recruiting people to take action. And you can do this wrong or you can do it right. And doing it right effectively is about establishing cooperation, not co-option. So somebody cares about the animals and you want them to wear t-shirts that have got your corporate logo all over them to show that they care about animals. Well, they will call that out as pure sort of marketing takeover of an issue they care about, and they will resent it and they will tweet bad things about it. But if you can do it from a position where they can accept your engagement, where you can say, we're one of the players, we're not the dominant player, help us, let's work together to solve this problem, then it can be a very different dynamic indeed. And for all of these to work, you have to be able to engage them on the basis of authenticity and trust. So when does this engagement take place? When do you actually get the chance to engage your employees or your customers? Well, there are two main ways that it happens. First, when an outside catalyst sparks their interest and they come to you to seek answers. Some sort of a television program, something they see in front of them, some news item that makes them worried, and that's going to prompt them to come to you. And when they come to you, they don't want to have to navigate through your GRI framework. They want to know about the issue they want to know about. And the other time is when a concern is bubbling away and it's there and it's growing and it's at the back of their mind, occasionally it's at the front of their mind, but not usually when they deal with you. But then you reach out and effectively draw them in to learn more. And that, of course, is where there's a great opportunity for you. So that's it for this video. The key takeaway is that producing the report and putting it up there is just half the process. You have to engage your most important audiences. And we've talked about a few of the ways in which we do that. And in video 2, we're going to look at some websites where companies are already trying this out. See you then.